Germany has decided to send tanks to Ukraine.
Our goal is to quickly make 2 tank battalions available together with our allies.
The US says it's sending tanks too. Now, Ukraine already has around 1,200 Soviet-era tanks, but for months it said it needs new ones, especially this, the German-made Leopard 2, which is the most widely used in Europe. Now, Germany's already delivered a significant response to the war in Ukraine. It's the third largest weapons supplier after the US and the UK. It's substantially reduced its use of Russian gas. But on tanks, there hasn't, until now, been a commitment. And Germany's role is crucial when it comes to tanks, because there are more than 2,000 Leopard 2s in the countries marked in red here. And because Germany makes the tanks, it retains the right to decide if any of them can be passed on to another country. And pressure's been building on Germany to do just that. Free the Leopards has been a slogan used on social media and at protests like this one in Brussels. There's been diplomatic pressure too, particularly from Poland.
Poland and the free world cannot afford not to send Leopard tanks and not to send modern weapons to Ukraine.
And the decisions around tanks for Germany, for the UK and for others connect to the broader question of what kind of support they want to offer.
At the start of the war, the West's focus was on providing weapons for Ukraine to help it defend itself. That has now changed. Britain is giving 14 of these Challenger 2 main battle tanks, as well as 30 of these massive self-propelled guns.
As Jonathan Beale explains, this month the UK became the first to promise modern tanks. And now the US is sending at least 30 of its M1 Abrams tanks too. And that's important to Germany. It's made clear it didn't want to do this alone, and now it doesn't have to. But you may ask whether tanks can really tip the balance. This war is, after all, vast, stretching across eastern Ukraine. And when Russia invaded, it had more than 3,000 tanks and many more in reserve. Nonetheless, some analysts argue Western tanks do matter if they're used well by Ukraine.
Come the summer when they try to counterattack, this is, if they're kept together especially, this is very significant. You know, an armoured brigade of 100 tanks supported by 100 infantry fighting vehicles and artillery support is incredibly significant.
To make a difference, the tanks need to be part of a broader range of attacking options. And there's also an advantage that comes with Germany's decision on the Leopard.
The main thing is they're popular. The Poles have them, the Czechs have them. And so what this means is that it's much easier for the Ukrainians to build a larger force of tanks that all have the same logistics tail.
That will now happen. And Germany's history means this decision carries an extra weight.
Because of Germany's painful 20th century and its idea of its responsibility to its wartime guilt, the idea of sending German-made tanks into areas where the Nazis once committed atrocities is a difficult thing for German voters to deal with.
As the BBC's Jenny Hill has written, less than a year ago, the idea of the German government supplying arms to an active conflict would have been unthinkable. But that is where we are, and Russia's ambassador to Germany warns this extremely dangerous decision takes the conflict to a new level of confrontation. The West would say responsibility for all of this is Russia's alone, but these tanks do deepen the West's commitment to the war that Putin started, a war which has no end in sight.